The morning sun cast long shadows across the army camp when she first walked into his workshop. Her boots made no sound on the dirt floor, but he felt her presence. Immediately, the way the light seemed to bend around her tall figure, the way his hammer suddenly felt heavier in his hand. He was working on a simple sword repair when she appeared, but this was no ordinary visitor. Her armor caught his attention first. Silver and blue, metal plates that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. Delicate patterns were carved into every surface, flowing, like water frozen in time. This wasn't just armor, this was art. She stood there for a moment, watching him work. Her green eyes took in every detail of his workshop, the forge burning bright. In the corner, tools hanging neatly on wooden pegs. Half-finished projects scattered across his workbench. She seemed to be weighing something in her mind. "You are the one they call the armor mender," she said finally. Her voice was soft, but carried authority. Not a question, a statement. He set down his hammer and wiped his hands on his leather apron. "That depends on what needs mending," he replied, meeting her gaze. There was something different about her eyes. They held depths he couldn't quite understand. She stepped closer, and he noticed how she moved, graceful like a dancer, but with the controlled strength of a trained warrior. Her long hair was braided with small silver threads that caught the firelight from his forge. "My armor was damaged in yesterday's battle," she explained, turning slightly to show him her left side. "The dragon's claws went deeper than I first thought." He leaned in to look, and his breath caught. 3 parallel gashes ran from her shoulder, blade down to her ribs, but these weren't ordinary cuts in metal. The edges glowed faintly, and he could see tiny sparks dancing along the tears. Magic. This armor was alive with ancient power. "I've never worked on anything quite like this before," he admitted honestly. Many craftsmen would have lied, claimed expertise they didn't possess. But something about her made him want to speak the truth. She studied his face for a long moment. "The magic in this armor has been passed down through my family for 8 generations," she said quietly. "It chooses who can touch it without causing harm. If you are not worthy, it will burn you." He reached out slowly, stopping just short of the damaged metal. He could feel heat radiating from it, but not the burning kind, more like standing near a warm hearth on a cold winter night. "And if I am worthy, then you will be the first human to work on elven battle armor in over 100 years. The weight of her words settled between them. He understood now why she seemed so hesitant when she first entered. This wasn't just about fixing damaged metal. This was about trust between 2 peoples who had been suspicious of each other for centuries. "Why me?" he asked. "Surely there are elven smiths who could do this work." Her expression darkened slightly. "The nearest elven craftmaster is 3 weeks' journey from here. This battle damaged more than my armor. The magic that protects me grows weaker each day if it fails completely." She didn't finish the sentence, but he understood. He nodded slowly and moved to examine the damage more closely as his fingers approached the torn metal. The armor seemed to pulse with gentle warmth, not rejecting him, welcoming him. "The patterns aren't just decoration," she explained, watching him trace the intricate designs. "Each line channels protective energy. Break one, and the whole system becomes unstable." He could see it now, the way each curve connected to the next, forming an endless flowing design that covered every inch of the armor like a river system or the veins in a leaf. Break one connection, and the whole network would fail. "This will take time," he said. "Finally, days, maybe weeks. The work has to be precise. I understand, and you need to stay close. If this arm responds to you, I'll need you here while I work." Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. She had probably never spent extended time around humans before. "There's a small room behind the workshop," he offered. "It's not fancy, but it's private and comfortable." She glanced around his workshop again, taking in the organized chaos of his trade. Slowly. She nodded. Very well. But I have conditions, name them. No one else touches the armor. No one else even sees it being repaired. This stays between us. Agreed. And if you damage it beyond. Repair I won't, he said with quiet confidence. This is what I do. What I've always done for the first time since she'd entered his workshop. She smiled. It was small, barely visible, but it changed her entire face, made her look younger, less burdened. Then we begin tomorrow at dawn, she said. I'll need, tonight, to prepare the armor for a human touch. There are rituals, old words that must be spoken. As she turned to leave, he called after her. What should I call? You. She paused at the doorway, silhouetted against the afternoon light. My name is difficult for human tongues, but you may call me Kira. After she left, he stood alone in his workshop, staring at the space where she had been. Tomorrow would bring challenges unlike any he had faced before. Working with magic he didn't understand on armor more valuable than anything he had ever touched, for a woman whose people had been enemies of his kind for longer than anyone could remember. But as he banked his forge of night, he found himself looking forward to the morning. Something about this project felt different, important, like it might change more than just the armor they would be working on together. Dawn came, with a soft knock on his workshop door. He had been awake for an hour already, checking his tools and preparing his workspace. When he opened the door, Kira stood there wearing her armor. But something had changed overnight. The metal seemed brighter, more alive. Tiny streams of silver light flowed along the carved patterns like liquid starlight. The awakening ritual is complete, she said, stepping inside. The armor knows you are coming. He could feel it too, a gentle humming in the air, like the sound of distant music. When he looked closely at the damaged area, he noticed the torn edges had pulled slightly together, as if the metal was trying to heal itself. It wants to be whole again, Kira explained, seeing his amazement. But it needs guidance, a skilled hand to show it the way. He nodded and moved to his workbench where he had laid out specialized tools. Most were his own creation, modified over years of working with different metals. But for this job, he had made something new. Tiny hammers, with heads no bigger than his thumbnail. Files so thin they looked like needles. Everything designed for the most delicate work imaginable. I'll need to start with the deepest cut first, he said, examining the damage in the morning light, the one that goes closest to the central pattern. Kira positioned herself beside his workbench, standing perfectly still. The armor fit her like a second skin, every curve and angle designed to move with her body. He could see now why elven armor was legendary. It wasn't just protection. It was partnership between warrior and craft. He picked up his smallest hammer and held it near the torn metal. The armor pulsed once, sending warmth up his arm. Not painful, but startling. It's testing you, Kira said quietly. Deciding if it trusts you, he steadied his hand and touched the hammer to the edge of the cut. The metal sang softly, a note so pure it made his heart skip. The armor had accepted him. Working with magical metal was unlike anything he had experienced. Every tap of his hammer seemed to echo through the entire piece. He could feel the armor's response, the way it wanted to be. Shape. It was like having a conversation without words. Tell me about these patterns, he said as he worked, tracing one of the flowing lines with his finger. They're not just decorative, are they? Kira's posture relaxed slightly. Each pattern tells a story. This one here, she pointed to a spiral near her shoulder, represents the wind through mountain passes. It grants speed and grace in battle. And this one, he indicated a series of interlocking circles, the bond between all living things. It helps the armor know when I'm in danger, even before I do. As he continued working, she told him about other patterns. The one that looked like flowing water gave flexibility. The geometric shapes that resembled crystals provided strength. The delicate leaf designs helped the armor repair minor damage on its own. My great-grandmother designed the base patterns, Kira said, but each generation has added something. My mother added the stars you see along the edges. They help with balance. What will you add? He asked, carefully filing away a rough edge. She was quiet for so long, he thought she wouldn't answer. I haven't decided yet. She finally said, I always thought I had more time to figure it out. Something in her voice made him look up from his work. There was sadness there, deeper than worry about damaged armor. This war, she continued, it's changing everything. The old ways, the old certainties. Sometimes I wonder if there will be anything left to pass down. He set down his tools and really looked at her. Beneath the warrior's composure, he saw someone carrying a heavy burden, the weight of tradition, of expectations, of a future that looked nothing like the past. The patterns will survive, he said, simply. Good craftsmanship always does. They worked in comfortable silence for while his hands steadied despite the complexity of the task. The torn metal slowly began to take shape under his. Careful attention. But this wasn't ordinary metalwork. The armor seemed to anticipate his movements, flowing into the correct position just before his tools touched it. I've never seen anything like this, he admitted. The way it responds, the way it wants to be fixed, it's almost like it's alive. In many ways, it is, Kira replied. Elven smiths don't just work metal. They wake it up, give it purpose. That's why the repair work is so dangerous. One wrong move, and you could damage not just the armor, but the spirit within it. The responsibility of that hit him fully. This wasn't just about fixing torn metal. He was working on something that had been alive for generations. Something that held the memories and skills of craftsmen long dead. No pressure. He muttered and was surprised to hear Kira laugh. You're doing fine, she said. Better than fine. The armor likes you. I can feel it. As the morning wore on, their initial awkwardness began to fade. She answered his questions about elven metalworking techniques. He explained how human smiths approach different challenges. Despite coming from completely different traditions, they found common ground in their respect for craft. Your people use heat differently than we do, Kira observed, watching him work. We have, too. Human-made metal doesn't have the same natural flexibility as elven metal. We compensate with temperature control and timing. And yet, you're working on my armor like you've done it 100 times. Before he paused to consider that good metal is good metal, I suppose the techniques might be different, but the principles are the same. Respect the material. Work with it, not against it, and never rush. By midday, he had successfully repaired the smallest of the 3 cuts. The metal had flowed back together like water, leaving only the faintest line to show where the damage had been. The magical patterns were perfect, unbroken, glowing softly with renewed power. Kira twisted carefully to examine his work, and her face lit up with genuine amazement. It's perfect, she breathed, even better than before. The praise warmed him more than he expected. This was just the beginning, but already he could see this project would change him. Working with someone who understood craftsmanship at this level, who appreciated the dedication it required, was something he had never experienced before. 2 more cuts to go, he said, cleaning his tools. Yes, Kira agreed, but I think we're going to do just fine. The 3rd day brought the most challenging repair yet. The deepest cut ran along Kira's side, following the curve of her ribs where the armor was most complex. Here, dozens of tiny patterns intersected, creating a web of magic so intricate made his eyes water. Just looking at it, this section controls the armor's connection to my breathing. Here, I explained as they prepared for the day's work. It helps regulate temperature and filters out harmful air. The damage here is why I've been feeling so tired. He could see what she meant. The torn patterns had disrupted the flow of energy, creating dead spots in the magical network. It was like trying to breathe through a blocked nose. Possible, but exhausting. I'll need to work from multiple angles, he said, studying the damage carefully. The way these patterns overlap, I can't reach everything from one position. Kira nodded, though he noticed her hands fidgeting with the edge of her cloak. After 2 days of working together, he had learned to read her moods. This morning, she seemed nervous about something. Is there something else I should know? He asked. Gently, she hesitated, then spoke in a rush. This section of armor is sensitive. The patterns here connect directly to the wearer's life force. When you work on them, I'll feel everything you do. Feel it how it's hard to explain. Like someone touching your skin, but deeper. The magic carries sensation directly to my nerves. Her cheeks colored slightly. It can be quite intense. He understood now why she was nervous. This level of connection was far more intimate than the mechanical repair work they had been doing. It would require a level of trust between them that went beyond professional courtesy. We can wait, he offered. Fine. Another way. Maybe no, she said firmly. Every day we delay, the armor gets weaker. And besides, she added with a small smile, I trust you now. You've proven yourself worthy of that trust. They began with the outermost patterns, the ones least connected to her life. Force. Even so, he noticed Kira's breathing change as he worked. Her eyes closed, and she gripped the edge of his workbench with white knuckles. Are you all right? He asked, pausing. Immediately. Fine, she managed. It's just strange. I can feel exactly where you're working, how careful you're being. It's not painful, just very intense. He resumed his work with even more care than before, hyper-aware that every touch of his tools was magnified for her. The responsibility was almost overwhelming. One careless move could cause her genuine pain. As he worked deeper into the pattern, moving toward the central intersection where the magic was strongest, Kira's reactions became more pronounced. Her breathing quickened, and he could see tension in every line of her body. Talk to me, he said softly, not looking up from his work. Tell me about something else. Take your mind off what I'm doing. Like what? Her voice was strained. Anything. Your home, your family, your favorite food, whatever helps. She was quiet for a moment, then began speaking about the elven forest, where she had grown up. Tall trees that had been growing for 1,000 years, their leaves creating a canopy so thick that the forest floor existed in perpetual twilight. She described the sound of wind through ancient branches, the smell of flowers that bloomed only once a century. Her voice gradually relaxed as she spoke, and he could feel some of the tension leave her body. But as his work reached the most damaged area, the very heart of the magical intersection, even her stories couldn't completely distract her from what she was experiencing. His tool touched the central pattern, and Kira gasped, her whole body going rigid. The sound was somewhere between surprise and something else, something that made his own breath catch. Sorry, he said quickly, pulling back. Was that too much? No, it's fine, she said, but her voice was breathless. It's just the magic is so concentrated there. When you touch it, it feels like she trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the explanation. He could see a flush creeping up her neck, and suddenly the air in the workshop felt charged with more than just magical energy. He resumed his work, but now every movement felt weighted with significance. The delicate touch required for this repair, the intimate connection between them through the armor's magic, the way she responded to his careful ministrations. It was unlike anything either of them had experienced. As he made a particularly precise adjustment to a damaged rune, Kira's composure finally cracked. A small sound escaped her, somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. Her shoulders shook slightly, and he realized she was trying not to giggle. I'm sorry, she said, pressing her hand to her mouth. It's just that particular spot is very sensitive to the magic. It feels. She made the sound again, a soft giggle she couldn't quite suppress. It tickles, he guests looking up at her with amusement, among other things. She admitted, her face now completely red. I know this is serious work, but the way the magic responds to your touch, it's so gentle and precise. And another giggle escaped. It tickles. Human, do it slowly. The words hung in the air between them, and suddenly both of them realized how that sounded. The workshop fell completely silent except for the crackling of the forge and their own breathing. He found himself staring into her green eyes, seeing vulnerability there he had never noticed before. This proud elven warrior, descendant of legends, was trusting him with something far more precious than just her armor. She was trusting him with her safety, her comfort, her dignity. Slowly, he repeated softly, his own voice rougher than intended. She nodded, not breaking eye contact. Please. Something fundamental shifted between them in that moment. This was no longer just about repairing damaged metal. It had become about connection, about trust, about two people from different worlds finding common ground in the most unexpected place. He returned to his work, but now every movement was deliberate, gentle, almost reverent. He could feel her watching him, could sense her breathing, could practically hear her heartbeat in the quiet workshop. When he finally completed the repair to the central pattern, when the magic flowed smoothly through the restored network, the armor hummed with renewed power. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. How do you feel? He finally asked. Kira took a deep breath, testing the armor's restored function. Like I can breathe again, she said. Like I'm whole. She paused, then added quietly, Thank you. But they both knew she was thanking him for more than just the repair work. She was thanking him for his gentleness, his patience, his respect for her vulnerability in a moment when she had no choice but to trust him completely. One more section tomorrow, he said, beginning to clean his tools. Yes, she agreed. Just one more. But as they prepared to end their work for the day, both of them knew that whatever happened tomorrow, they had crossed a line today that could never be uncrossed. The careful professional distance they had maintained was gone, replaced by something deeper, more complex, and infinitely more dangerous. The fourth morning brought an unexpected change when Kira entered his workshop. She carried a small wooden box and wore an expression he couldn't quite read. Something between determination and nervousness. I brought you something, she said, setting the box on his workbench. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, were tools unlike any he had ever seen. They looked almost alive, made from what appeared to be crystallized silver, with handles carved from some kind of pale wood. Each tool hummed softly with its own inner light. These belonged to my grandfather, she explained. He was the one who first worked on this armor when it came to our family. I thought you might need them for the final repair. He stared at the tools, understanding the weight of what she was offering. These weren't just family heirlooms. They were sacred instruments passed down through generations of elven craftsmen. For her, to offer them to a human was unprecedented. I can't accept these, he said quietly. They're too valuable, too important to your family. They're meant to be used, she replied firmly. My grandfather always said that tools, locked away in boxes, serve no purpose. Besides, she added with a small smile, I think he would approve of you. As he lifted one of the tools, feeling its perfect balance and the way it seemed to respond to his touch, Kira began the final preparation for their last day of work together. But something was different in the way she moved and the way she looked at him. There's something else, she said as she positioned herself for the work. Something I discovered last night when I was examining the damage more closely. What kind of something? Her expression darkened. The cuts weren't made by dragon claws. They're too precise, too deliberate. Someone used a blade specifically designed to damage magical armor. The implications hit him immediately. Someone tried to kill you, or at least leave me defenseless in the next battle. She traced one of the cuts with her finger. The weapon that did this would be incredibly rare. Only a few people would even know how to make something like that. Someone in your own army. That's what I'm afraid of. She met his eyes and he saw real fear there. There are factions among both our peoples who don't want this alliance to succeed. If they can eliminate key leaders from both sides, they can blame the other side and restart the war. He finished. They worked in tense silence the first hour, both of them processing this. Revelation. The final repair was on her shoulder blade, a complex intersection of protective patterns that control the armor's ability to deflect weapons. It was painstaking work requiring absolute precision, but as the morning progressed, their conversation gradually returned to lighter topics. She told him about her training as a young warrior, the endless practice sessions, and the demanding teachers who had shaped her skills. He shared stories of his own apprenticeship, the burns and mistakes that had taught him the true nature of his craft. I used to think humans were all the same, she admitted as he worked on a particularly intricate section, loud, impatient, focused only on immediate results. And now I realized I was judging an entire people based on a few bad examples. She paused. Thoughtfully, you approach your work the same way our best craftsmen do, with patience, respect, and genuine love for what you're creating. Your people aren't what I expected either, he said, carefully aligning the pattern lines. I thought elves were all cold and distant and proud to work with anyone else. Some of us are, she laughed. But most of us just want the same things humans want. Safety for our families, respect for our traditions, the chance to build something better for next generation. As he worked deeper into the final pattern, using her grandfather's tools that seemed to guide his hands to exactly the right spots, their conversation turned to more personal topics. She spoke about the pressure of living up to her family's reputation, the weight of wearing armor that had belonged to heroes. He talked about the loneliness of being a master craftsman in a world that increasingly valued speed over quality. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had met under different circumstances? She asked suddenly. He paused in his work. Considering the question, you mean if there wasn't a war? If our peoples weren't suspicious of each other? If we were just the crafts people who happen to meet at a market or festival or anywhere normal people meet? The thought of it made something tighten in his chest. I think he said carefully, we would have been friends much sooner. Just friends. The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities neither of them had dared to voice before. He found himself looking at her not as the elven warrior who needed his help, but as a woman who had trusted him with her most precious possessions, who had shared her fears and dreams, who had shown him vulnerability and strength in equal measure. I don't know, he answered honestly, but I'd like to find out. The final tool touched the last damage rune, and suddenly the entire armor blazed with light. Not the harsh glare of fire, but the soft radiance of moonlight on water. Every pattern glowed. Every line pulsed with renewed power. The repair was complete. Kira stood slowly, testing the armor's restored function. She moved through a series of combat forms, her body flowing like water, the arm responding to her. Every motion as if it were part of her skin. It's perfect. She breathed better than it's ever been. But even as they celebrated the successful completion of their work, the shadow of her discovery hung over them. Someone had tried to kill her, and that someone was still out there. What happens now? He asked. Now we figure out who's behind this, she said, her warrior's determination returning. And we stop them before they can hurt anyone else. She turned to face him fully, and in her eyes he saw not just gratitude for his work, but something deeper, partnership, trust, the beginning of something that neither war nor prejudice could easily destroy. You're part of this now, she said, simply, whether you want to be or not. Besides, I'm going to need someone to maintain the armor's new improvements. New improvements? She smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, it was completely without reservation. Did you think I wouldn't notice? The way you've enhanced the protective patterns. strengthened the weak points, added your own touches to the design. This armor is better now than it was before the attack. He looked at his work with new eyes and realized she was right, without consciously planning it. He had improved upon centuries of elven craftsmanship. His human techniques combined with her people's magical knowledge had created something entirely new. I suppose we make a good team, he said. The best, she agreed, and I have a feeling we're going to need each other for what comes next. 3 days later, they had their answer, and it was worse than either of them had imagined. The breakthrough came when Kira returned from a scouting mission with disturbing news. She had found evidence of similar attacks on other key Alliance members. Always the same. Precision cuts, always targeting magical protection. Always designed to leave the victim vulnerable without immediately killing them. It's systematic, she explained, spreading out sketches on his workbench. They're not trying to start a war through open assassination. They're weakening our defenses, so we'll fail in the next major battle. And then they can claim the Alliance was doomed. From the start, both sides retreat to their old territories. The war continues, and whoever is behind this profits from the chaos. He studied the sketches, noting the similarity to the damage on her armor. You said the weapon would be rare. How rare? There are maybe 5 people in both our armies who could forge something like this. Her expression was grim, and I know 3 of them personally. The investigation that followed was unlike anything he had ever been part of. Using her connections and his growing understanding of magical metalwork, they began tracing the source of the weapons. It required him to examine damaged armor from other victims, looking for the subtle signatures that every craftsman left in their work. This scratch pattern here, he said, pointing to a microscopic detail on a piece of damaged chainmail. It's made by a tool with a slightly bent edge. The same bend appears on your armor. So, it's definitely the same. Weapon, same hand wielding it. Whoever did this has been very busy. Their investigation drew them closer together, partners in a way that went beyond their original craftsman-client relationship. They worked late into the night, comparing notes, following leads, slowly building a picture of conspiracy against the Alliance. It was during one of these late-night sessions that she made an unexpected confession. I've never trusted anyone the way I trust you, she said suddenly, looking up from the documents scattered across his workbench. He paused in his examination of a damaged helmet. What brought that on? All of this? She gestured at their investigation materials. The way you've thrown yourself into helping me even though this isn't your fight. The way you see details others miss. The way you care. Of course I care. You're my friend, am I? She stood and moved closer to where he sat. Because I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about what might have happened if we met under different circumstances. He set down his tools and really looked at her in the soft light of his workshop lamps. She looked different from the proud warrior who had first entered his domain. Softer, more open, but no less strong. In what conclusion did you reach? That circumstances don't matter as much as I thought they did. She reached out and touched his hand. What matters is who people really are when everything else is stripped away. And you're someone worth knowing. Before he could respond, they were interrupted by shouting outside. Kira immediately shifted into warrior mode, her hand moving to her sword, but the voice calling out was familiar. Kira, are you in there? We found something. It was one of the Alliance scouts, and what it found changed everything. Hidden in the tent of a high-ranking officer was a collection of the specialized weapons they had been looking for. But the officer wasn't from either army. He's a merchant, the scout explained breathlessly. Been selling supplies to both sides for months. Had access to everyone. Could study our defenses, identify key targets, and profit from a longer war. Kira finished grimly. The confrontation that followed was swift and decisive. Faced with evidence of his crimes, the merchant confessed to everything. He had been paid by a consortium of war professors to sabotage the Alliance from within. The attacks on magical armor were just one part of a larger plan to ensure the conflict continued indefinitely. Wars are profitable, he said with disturbing calm as they bound his hands. Peace is bad for business. With the conspiracy exposed and the saboteur captured, the immediate threat to the Alliance was over. But as they stood in the aftermath, both Kira and the craftsman realized their partnership had grown into something neither had expected. "So what happens now?" he asked as they walked back to his workshop in the pre-dawn darkness. "Now the Alliance can move forward without sabotage, undermining our efforts." She said, "The war will end sooner, fewer people will die, and maybe our peoples can finally learn to work together." "That's not what I meant." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "I know what you meant." They stood there in the quiet street, two people from different worlds who had found something precious in the most unlikely circumstances. "I have to return to my uni tomorrow," she said. "Finally, the Alliance needs its warriors now more than ever, and I have work waiting here. Other armor to repair, other people to help. But I was hoping this wouldn't be goodbye. Forever," she smiled, the same unreserved expression he had come to treasure. "The Alliance is planning to establish permanent trade relations once the war ends. They'll need craftsmen who understand both human and elven techniques. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a future with me if you want it." Looking at her standing there in her perfectly repaired armor, the patterns glowing softly in the early morning light, he realized she had become something he had never expected to find. Not just a client, not just a friend, but a partner in every sense of the word. "When you put it like that," he said, stepping closer to her, "how could I say no?" She laughed and surprised him by pulling him into a fierce hug. "Then it's settled. When this war is over, we'll have work to do." "What kind of work?" "Building bridges," she said, "teaching human smiths elven techniques, showing elven craftsmen human innovations, creating something new from the best of both our peoples. And in the meantime, you keep doing what you do best, and I'll make sure no one else tries to. Damage work as beautiful as what we created together." As the sun rose over the army camp, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they stood together outside his workshop. The armor repair that had brought them together was complete, but their real work was just beginning. "Take care of yourself." "Out there," he said. "I will. This armor has never been stronger thanks to you." "Thanks to us," he corrected. "We made it better together." She nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in his words. They had made more than just armor better. They had proven that cooperation between their peoples was possible, that differences in technique and tradition could become strengths rather than barriers. "Until we meet again," she said, preparing to leave. "Until we meet again," he agreed. "And next time, maybe we can work on something that doesn't involve people trying to kill you. Where's the fun in that?" She laughed, but her eyes were serious. "Thank you for everything." As she walked away, her armor catching the morning light like captured stars, he stood in his workshop doorway, knowing that his life had been forever changed. He had learned that the best creations came not from working alone, but from finding someone who shared your dedication to excellence and your belief that beautiful things were worth the effort to create. The war would end eventually. Peace would come. And when it did, they would be ready to build something new together.